We're on the bottom of Chav Daled Amud Aleph, about to start Chav Daled Amud Beis. Imishum Tnuye, if the reason why Rabbi Yehuda and his tefillos were accepted and the rains came down is because they learned a lot, their Talmud Torah was extended. Anana Difnei Minayim, we learned even more than Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnei Rabbi Yehuda, during the generation of Rabbi Yehuda, Kol Tnuye, all of their studies, and here we turn to Chav Daled Amud Beis, were concentrated in Ezekiel. So out of 6 Sidrei Mishnah, they were focusing and putting all their energies into Nezikin, Banan, Kamas Nisan, Veshita, Sidrin. We study all 6 Daran. So our study is even greater than his. So we still don't have an answer as to why Rabbi Yehuda's tefillos were accepted and not Rabbah. And furthermore, Ve'havi Kiavi Mati Rabbi Yehuda Be'uktzin, when Rabbi Yehuda came to learn Taros and Hilchas Uktzin, and he got to the Mishnah, the second parak of Uktzin, and he turned to us for an explanation. Meaning, he said that this sugya is way too profound for him. What was the Mishnah that he was studying? It came to his attention. A Mishnah with regard to Ha'isha Shekoveshes Yerek B'Kedera, and she presses down a vegetable inside the pot in order to remove all the liquids so that the vegetable would be absolutely dry without any moisture, any liquids inside of it, and then it would last a longer period of time. V'naga bi'ola chutz l'kedera b'makom ha'naguf. Now the question is, this ola, this is a leaf that's a leaf from the vegetable, and the question is, if tumah comes on that leaf and is nogea, does that therefore transmit the tumah to the entire yerek, the whole vegetable? And that's called yad shel yerek. Yad shel yerek means if there's tumah that comes in contact with the yad shel yerek, in our context would be the leaf of the yerek, that would transmit tumah to the yerek itself. And the yerek has a shir of kibetza, so it's mitami tumas ochli. And yet the halacha is, hu tameh, the Allah, which came in direct contact with the tumah, is tameh, but akol tar. Everything else is tar. That means the olah is not considered a yad shel yerek to transmit tumah, because after the kvisha, after they squeezed out all the liquids, the yerek becomes very soft, and the olah falls off. And therefore, even though there was an agias tumah in the olah, it's not mitami the yerek. And all this is because it's after kvisha. Amalei, according to another version, which Mishnah confounded Rabbi Yehuda and it confused his mind. It's the Mishnah also in the second parak of Uktzin. In this case, the previous Mishnah was the second parak of Taras. Now we're in the second parak of Uktzin. Zeisim shekvasham. Now we're talking about crushed olives. B'tarfein. He left the olive and the olim shavuim and the leaves of the olives in one utensil together with chometz. Tarfeim means with vinegar. Tahorim, if the tumah came in contact with the alim of the zayis, which normally would be considered yodos hazeisim, the zaysim themselves, the olives themselves remain tahorim, and the connection between the olives and their leaves is not considered a chibur of yodos. Lefi shalom kavshan el lemara. Lo hudchu ha'olim b'kliyam hazeisim el kadeshi yirashi shenitlichu hazeisim ka'es. You know, it's the adding of the olive, the leaves into the zaysim, into the kli of zaysim. It's only a simon that it's fresh zaysim that were only recently harvested and they're not old from an old crop. But anyway, it's not a yad l'zaysim because after the kvisha, the olim very quickly break, and you can't take the zayis by holding on to the olim. You hold on to the leaves, and you want to pick up the vegetable by holding on to the leaves. It's not going to happen. The olim is just going to break and fall away because it's after kibush, after he did the kvisha. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda would say about that Mishnah that deals with the laws of Uktzin, Havayis the Rav Shmuel Kochazina. I see something as deep and as profound as the questions and answers, the give and take of Rav and Shmuel. And these are very difficult sugyas in Uktzin, in Tumah V'Tara. In any event, we see that during the time of Rabbi Yehuda, they weren't experts in these halachas. Vanan, but Rabbi says in our generation, we have 13 yeshivas that are dedicating their studies to Masechet Uktzin. I guess that was in Masechet at that time. So you see that even difficult halachos, which at the time of Rabbi Yehuda they couldn't understand, at the time of Rabbi they were able to understand. And yet, paradoxically, Rabbi Yehuda ki avisholef chad mesane, even if he took off one of his two shoes because of inui, of an expression of affliction and commensurating with the atziras gishanim, even before he got to take off his second shoe, Asi Mitra, the rains would come down. Fanan, Kotzavchina Kuliyoma, we'd be crying out to Hashem the entire day, but like the Achim. And no one is listening and paying attention to that tefillos. So it can't be because of Ribu Liman Torah in Rabbi Yehuda's period, because certainly our Liman Torah is even greater than that of Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi says, Ve'imishum Ovada, and if you were to postulate that the reason why Rabbi Yehuda his tefillos were accepted more than ours is because we have some sort of pagam. Maybe, Rabbi is pointing an accusing finger at himself. Maybe I did something wrong, and Hashem doesn't want to accept my tefillos. Therefore, I want to make the following announcement: if there's anyone here who chas v'shalom will tell me that I did some Masechet hagun lema, come forward, please, and tell me. And Rabbi completes his statement by saying, "Ma yasu b'dolei ador she'ein doron doma yof." In other words, it's not a pagam in me as the leader or any of the other Gedolim of our generation, but rather, what could the Gedolei Ador do if the Dar itself is not Doma Yof? If the Maasim of the Bnei Dar are not Ksherim, like they were at the time of Rabbi Yehuda. Therefore, our tefillos and the tefillos of the Gedolei Ador are not being hearkened, they're not being responded to. Now the Gemara brings an answer. How is it that in that story, Rabbi says, Rabbi Yosef, Nena, and immediately when one of Rabbi Yehuda's sandals was taken off, Hashem responded and brought down the rains. Rabbi Yehuda Chaza Hanu Beitrei. Rabbi Yehuda saw two men, Davaka Partzi Berifta. They were throwing bread around, one from the other, like a game. Instead of throwing a ping pong ball or something, they were throwing bread, which is a zilzal and oflim. Omar, Rabbi Yehuda declared, from the fact that these two people are noagim bizoyim bepas, v'zalzal b'minei machal shmam. It's not just a very individual issue over here, but the reason why that you find this sociological phenomenon of throwing bread around this way and that, that there's plenty in the world, plenty, so much. And because of the Ribu Shefa, people come to be mezvaza ochlan. They don't take ochlan seriously. It's not worth anything. There's so much out there. The affluence is incredible. If Ene, so therefore Rabbi Yehuda gives a kind of a whammy, he's mocking on them, Vahavu Knafa. And as a result, there's famine in the world. So it means that Rabbi Yehuda wanted to create a tikkun and make sure that they were avoiding this affair of zilzul b'ochlin, which he attributed to the wealth, and he gave them whammy, and all of a sudden everybody was poor. Amule Rabbana Rav Kahana Breder of Nechunya Shamei. So the Rabbanan sort of commissioned Rav Kahana. And why Rav Kahana? Because he was the Shamash of Rabbi Yehuda. Mar de Shliach Kamei. You're always in front of Rabbi Yehuda. The Asye, the Lepuk, the Pischa, the Samach L'Shuka. Basically, they wanted the Shamei to somehow get Rabbi Yehuda out of the Beis Medrash or out of his house, and to go to the front of his house, which was near the shuk, to see with his own eyes how the people in the city are dealing with a very severe ra'ah, a famine. And this is what Rav Kahana did, as he was asked to do. He was goring Rabbi Yehuda to go out of the entrance way, but nafik l'shukah. And Rabbi Yehuda went out to the shuk. And on his way there, Chazak Knufya, he saw a whole gathering of people. Amalu, he asked the gathering, my eye, what's the big deal? Are they giving away something for free? Amalei, they answered, Rabbi Yehuda, Akusma de Tamre Kaimi de Komisdav. We're all standing here because there's about to be a sale. Somebody's about to sell a kli, some sort of vessel or receptacle that's full of dates. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda was very, he had power of observation. He realized that if people are in droves, are gathering together to buy one kli's worth of tvar, kafta bi'alma, it must be that there's famine in the land. Amalei l'sham'ei, Rabbi Yehuda says to Rav Kahana, his shamash, shlofli b'saneh, take off my shoe, so I will, in a sense, commensurate with the famine in the land. Shalaf lechad misane, they took off one shoe already, and it started raining. Kimata, so now they wanted to remove Lemishla, to take off the other shoe. Who wants to walk around with one shoe? Anyway, Elio Anovi came, he revealed himself to Rabbi Yehuda, and he told him, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalfas Achrina, if you're going to take off the second shoe as well, Machrivna Lialma, I'll be Machriv the Olam with Rov Gesham. There'll be so much Geshamim coming down that the entire world will be inundated. Rav Mari Rei Rav Shmuel, Tabat Shmuel. Rav Mari is the grandson of Shmuel through Shmuel's daughter. And on that day that Rabbi Yehuda took off his now, because of the tsar of Atziras Kishamim, I at that particular moment was standing on Sfas HaNar, and the name of the Nar of this river was Papa. I saw angels that looked like sailors. The Kamaisi Chala Umalunu Liarbe. These angels were bringing sand and filling up the boat with sand. Kimcha dismida. And this sand, nepach lekemach michubach gisolis. So again, these angels were bringing sand and filling up the boat. And the sand magically, supernaturally, was converted into kemach, the best kemach, solas kemach. And the malachim themselves were selling the solas. And when the people of the city saw this, also kuli alma lemizvim, everybody came around to buy this kemach, this very special kemach solas. Amalahu, and Rabbi Yehuda said to the people who came to buy, Meholo tisma, don't buy this kemach. Why? The Maisa Nisim. This kemach was generated by a miracle, and a person should always be misracheg as much as he can from Maisa Nisim. So since they didn't want to benefit from the Maisa Nisim Lamachar, on the next day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hikra below Maisa Nisim, the Asya Arbe the Chiti de Parzina. And a boat came with full of chipim from a place called Parzina, and it became a sova. This was able to satiate them because of the ribu chitu chegiv, and therefore they didn't have to be nene from the Maisa Nisim. Rava ikla lehagrona, he came to a city called Grona. Gazar tanisa veloasa mitra. Amalahu, Rava says to the people of the city, bisu kuli alma b'sachnifu. You should all stay not only the fast, but even into the night after the fast, lemachar, up until tomorrow. Amalahu. And Rava asks the members of the city, if anyone overnight has a dream, please come and tell me what he saw in a dream. Amalahu. And Rabbi Elazar Me'agronia said, Lididi, I had a dream, and what did I see? Akriyan bechelme. I was reading out loud a pasuk, so to speak, in my dream. And what did I say in my dream? Shalom tov, l'rav tov. In other words, Rabbu's Rashiva is Me'ribun tov. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Ribbon, is the master of goodness, of benevolence, the Mituve Meitiv Liamet. And he will give, in the schus of Rava, Tov to his people. Amar Rava, when he heard this about the stream, Shmamina, he derived the conclusion, Eis Ratzoni, it's a good moment of time, the boy Rachmi, to ask for Rachmi Shmaim, boy Rachmi, the Osi Mitra. And after they prayed, the rains fell down. Another story, Ahu Gavra, a person, the Chayev, Ganda the Beit Dina, the Ravi was Chayev Malchus in the Bezdin Rav Mishum Boy Baal Kusis. He had a relationship with a non-Jewish woman. Nagde Rava Miss, as a result of the Malchus that Rava had implemented to this person. The person died because of the Malchus. Ishtama Milsa Bei Shvar Malka, and the word came to the Bei Shvar Melech Paras, Shvar Melech Paras, and Bailitzuri Rava, he wanted to punish Rava. The Melech wanted to be Mitzayah Rava as a punishment for the fact that he caused the death of a person. Amalei Ifra Hurmiz, a woman by the name of Ifra Hurmiz. Who is Ifra Hurmiz? She's Ime de Shvar Malka. She's the mother of the king of Shvar Malka, the king of Persia. LeBron, she says to her son, don't start up with the Jews. If you're going to be mitzayir the Jews, then you might be in danger. So to buy whatever they want from you, arrive from their master. Yoivle, the master, meaning God, gives them, grants them all their wishes. Apparently, the king Shvar was not so convinced. So he asked his mother, Maihi, what did you see? On what occasion that they were mavakesh, and God responded, and the mother answered, Ba'un rachme v'yasi mitra. Whenever they're mavakesh rachamim, to get rain, and they pray and they supplicate God for rain, the rains fall down. Amalei, so Shvar, her son, right, the king, says to her, Hahu, I don't buy into this. You know why the rains fell down? It's not because of the tefillos, but Mishum the Zin the Mitru, it's the time period for rain. And even without that tefillos, the rain would have fallen. Ella, but rather, if you want to prove that anything they ask for, God responds is livu rachme o'idna. Let them ask now, but kufas tammuz in the summer period of time when there's no rains, and let's see if they can bring down the rains. The leise mitra. So Shalchalei, so the mother of the king, sends to Rava because she had a very good respect for Rava. Kavein datoch uboy rachme delese mitra. Think very deeply, intently, and ask for divine compassion and bring down the rain. So we'll be able to prove to the king, my son, that your God does whatever you want, whatever you ask from him. And then you'll be saved and spared from the tsar of the melech, for the punishment that the king wants to impose upon you. Boy rachme, but lo asimitra. Rava was v'vakashachim, but the rain didn't come down. Amal of Rava says to the Ribbon Shalom, what are you going to do here? There's a pasuk in Tehillim, mental. It says, "Elokim v'yaznenu shamanu avosenu siprolanu poel pa'alto b'meim b'mekeda." We heard from our forefathers about all the different miracles, the supernatural events that they witnessed in their generations, and you brought down rains from the sky, even when it wasn't the time for rains, like in the summertime. The anu, but we beinenu lo ra'inu. We haven't witnessed those great sins, those obvious nisim gluyim. And therefore I'm asking you, I'm begging you, God, do for us those nisim gluyim. And when Rav finished his tefillah, Asa Mitra, the rain fell down. To what extent was there rain? At the shafar marzavei the tzipori lediglas. The dripping of the water through the marzevim, those are the alleyways, on top of the roofs, what are they called? Those channels, and the water came down those channels and it flooded so much it got to the Nar Chideka. Rav's father came to him in a dream. You didn't do the right thing. Should a person be matriach his father in heaven to that extent to ask that he should bring down Geshomim in the summertime? Shalom is manam, and it's not proper time. And the father of Rava added, the Amalei Shanei Duchtech. You better change the place where you're sleeping, because the mazikin are going to get you and they're going to punish you for what you did. And Shani Duchte, and Rava slept in a different place. And as the mazikin, the demons, know where they can get you at a certain place, but they don't have power over a different place. The Machar, when he woke up in the morning, Rava Ashkeche went back to his original bed to check it out. And what did he find? The Mirsham Pure Bisakine. He saw that his bed was full of slices and openings from knives of the shaitan that wanted to kill him. Rav Papa Gozar Tanisa, Rav Papa instituted a fast in order to bring down the rains. Okay, so we have Rav Papa. Gutters. Okay, I said channels. I didn't know the word is gutters. That's and lo asavich. But despite the tightness of Rav Papa, the rain to not college live. He had chalish sadas from this. Chalish lev soraf sraf pinka the daisa. He swallowed a kaf of daisa, of some sort of a cereal. It says here in the English that he consumed a spoonful of grits. Uboy Rachmi Velosavitri prayed for rain, but it didn't come. Omalei Rav Nachman Baruch Azdi. Isarif Mar Hinchach Riti the dice Asu Mitra. If master were to consume another spoonful of grits, the rains would come. Although it might have been necessary for a puppet to break his fast because of his weakened condition, Rav Nachman ridiculed him for breaking it before praying for rain. By causing Rav Papa to feel the severity of his humiliation and not having his prayers answered, he hoped that God would show him favor and compensate him by answering his prayers. Rav Papa was humiliated. He felt dejected. He also Mitra, and the rains came down. Rav Chanina ben Dosa was on the road. And also Mitra, and the rains came down. The whole world is at ease. The world is not on the road. They're not ill-affected by the rains, but I'm in distress. Pasak Mitra, and as a result of Rav Chanina's prayers, the rain ceased. When Rabbi Chanina got home, he's no longer on the road. He said, Ribono shel olam, kol ha'olam kulu b'tzar. Now the whole world is in distress because there's no rain. V'chanina b'nachas. I'm taking it easy. I couldn't care less if it rains. Now I'm home already. I'm not on the road. Also Mitra, and now it started raining. Rav Yosef, my ahanyu leit salos the Kohen Gadol legabi Rav Chanina ben Dosa. No, it's even though the Kohen Gadol prayed on Yom Kippurim that God should not listen and hearken to the prayers of the Overei Terachim who are complaining about rain. Don't listen to them. But from Rav Chanina ben Dosa's perspective, that feel of the Kohen Gadol had no power. Tistana Yispalel. The Kohen Gadol was his pal Tefillah Ktsara b'Beis HaChitzon, in the outer chamber, in the Heichal, a Tefillah Ktsara. My Matzi, what was the substance of his prayer? Rav Barada, the Amri Shavai Mishmeit Rav Yehuda, Yehirat Tzon Fanecha Hashem Elokeinu, Shetei Shana Zug Yeshuma, this should be a rainy year, Ushchuna Nahat year, Shchuna Mal Yosehi. Is heat a benefit? Either of a griyusahi, it's a detriment. Why would the Kohen Gadol pray for heat? Ella, but rather, im shchuna tehei geshuma utlula. If it's a hot year, let it be rainy and dewy, and counteract the drying effect of the heat. Don't accept the prayers of the travelers who are selfishly praying that it shouldn't rain because they don't want to deal with the mud on the road. Rav Acha prayed the Rav Mesayimich made Rav Yehuda the end of this tefillah. The conclusion was Lo Yadei Ovid Shultan Midabei Beis Yehuda. And may one who exercises rulership not pass from the house of Yehuda. This is a reference to the Reish Galusa in Bavel, who are descendants of David HaMelech and enjoyed autonomy. It cannot refer to the rulers of Eretz Yisrael because the kings of the period of Bayit Sheni were not of Davidic descent, but rather they were descended from the Chashmonaim, from the Kohanim. The Aliyu Amcha Yisrael Tzrichim is Parnis, that the people should not have to rely one upon the other, and certainly not another nation. A Baskol comes out and proclaims on a daily basis, the entire world will receive its sustenance in the merit of Chanina. And Chanina b'ni dayo b'kav charuvim me erev Shabbos erev Shabbos. Chanina himself would suffice by living with a kav of charuvim, a boxer, from one Shabbos to the next Shabbos. Avregila de Beisol lemechse tanura kol mali de Shabbos. The wife of Rabbi Dosa would heat the oven on every Friday erev Shabbos. The shadi aktarta. Aktarta is something that causes smoke to go up. That she wanted people to think that she was baking for Shabbos mishum kisufa on the top of chafei because of embarrassment. and she wanted to make sure that people thought that she had enough food. Okay, so this is where we'll stop here on the top of Hey Amid Aleph.